Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Vision Science Academy platform. Today, we have Ken with us again. He definitely is an inspiration to millions of people out there who probably think if they see a little, that means world has come to the end. Ken has actually inspired me as well to see positive aspect in every situation. And believe me, if you read his book, Positive Vision, you will be well motivated in your day-to-day life. Welcome back, Ken. Are we having you here?
Well, thanks very much for having me, and thanks for that nice introduction.
It's really a pleasure to have you here. We interviewed you just before your book came out in September of last year. And our team at Vision Science Academy member enjoyed it so much that we wanted to follow up to see how things are going with you.
Well, that's great. Spend time working out and spend time practicing jazz trumpet and as much as possible during the pandemic, goofing off with family and friends and just having a good time. And the book has been doing well. It had a big burst of sales when it was first released because of pre-orders and went down. But it's been slowly but surely going back up because the topic it's not one that expires. It can continue to be of interest no matter when you read.
Exactly. Ken, there are a bunch of questions we just made ready to ask you. So are you okay? I start with the first question.
I'm ready.
It's my personal question that what actually inspired you to think or start writing your book, Positive Vision?
Well, I hadn't really thought about writing a book that much, but I had a bunch of stories that, depending on the situation, I'd bring up over coffees or beers with friends, and people really liked them. And then I thought, well, a lot of this has to do with poor vision, and a lot of people like the stories just because the adventure or the humor in them. Why don't I put them together and people might enjoy it? And I thought it would be fun to write the book, and it was fun to write. And then it's been really fun afterwards too, talking to people about the book or getting reactions from people about the book. So it's been a very enjoyable thing.
Another question is, how are you and your book, Positive Vision, enjoying the adventures and advantages of poor eyesight going at the moment?
All good. Pretty much like I just said, sales are good and continuous and slowly picking up. So far so good.
Okay, and it's another question which is very interesting for me and my colleague to know. How have ophthalmologists, optometrists, and even opticians and other vision professionals reacted to your book? Did you get any feedback from them?
Tons and tons of really, really nice, positive, good, enthusiastic feedback. It's been very, very rewarding, not just for my two eye doctors, but also from lots and lots of people who I had never met before. Book reviews, articles, interviews with, optician, ophthalmology related magazines. You guys, Vision Science Academy, you're a whole bunch of vision professionals. So there's been all kinds of great reviews and also very heartwarming. A lot of ophthalmologists and optometrists have been recommending the book to some of their patients. You can help people a lot with with medicine and with operations and eyeglasses and contacts and everything, but usually you get to a point where they're as much as you can help them, and some people are a little discouraged, and people have been recommending my book saying, oh, wait a minute, you don't have to be discouraged. You can just be happy and with the vision you have and just go for it and have a good time.
Ken, before just going to next question, I'll tell you about my own experience. I was working in low vision clinic, and I must tell you, it's the most sad part of the hospital, clinic, because the low vision patients come to you almost hopeless. So apart from eye specialist, you have to be a psychologist. And about your book, I suggest, at least to people in my country, my colleagues, they should translate it into Persian and frame it and put it on the wall in big font, and people just look at it and they said, oh, this is the positive aspects of having poor vision, and trust me, their life will change. So you should
cool. Well, you know, the more readers and the more languages, the better.
Definitely. And another question is, tell us a bit about Positive Vision and your audience of readers.
I think, you know, you can't really know for sure, but I think there's two broad audiences. One, there's a whole lot of people that just like adventures, autobiographies, biographies, memoirs. And I think, you know, and I've heard from people that like the book just based on that. They have good vision or they have poor vision, but they like it because of that. And there's a second group, which is people with poor vision and their friends and families who just want to read the book and get in a, you know, hopefully get inspired and laugh and have a good time, and also are excited by the adventures. So I think those are the two groups. But again, like, you never know. Some people, you never really know why people are buying the book. You know, they might love the cover. You know, it's hard to know.
Yes, and you know, yesterday I was going to your blog about positive aspect of vision, and I was remembering myself. You know, when I gave my first speech, there was a huge amount of audience, and I was thinking, oh, if I look at them, I don't have any confidence, I cannot talk. So I'm actually having refractive error. So I said, okay, so I don't wear my glasses or contact lens, so I see everything blur. And I did that, and I was so comfortable. People were staring at me, but I couldn't recognize them. So that is another advantage of having blur vision or even poor vision, I think. It was funny.
Well, now, I think that's exactly true. And you know, one small section of my book talks about the advantages of poor vision people have in public speaking. And you know, one is exactly what you're saying. You know, like public speaking can be terrifying. There have been some polls where people are asked, would you rather die or give a speech? And a lot of people pick, I'd rather die. You know, I mean, it's amazing.
Exactly.
So what happens if you have poor vision, a little bit like you explained, you don't see the audience as well. And also, it doesn't bother you if it's a big audience, because like, you can't really tell the difference between a giant audience and a medium audience. So you're less nervous about the whole thing. Also, a lot of times you're on stage, so the lights are in your eyes. So if you have poor vision, then like you can't see the audience, or good vision, you can't see the audience at all because the lights are in your eyes. Well, if you have good vision, this could throw you off a lot, because you have to judge by when there are silences, when people laugh, are they talking when they shouldn't be talking? You have to judge the audience that way. Well, people with poor vision are used to doing that. So it's not that big a deal to them. So they have an edge there. And then another edge is, but this could apply to people with good vision also, is if you have poor vision, you can't necessarily, like I have trouble reading my own notes during a speech. So it's better for me not to have notes. So I have to memorize the outline and memorize the examples and points I want to make with each part of the outline and practice it a bunch of times, which of course leads to a better speech. So if you have good vision, you could do that too. But if you have poor vision, you're forced into it. So that's good. And then because I have slightly crossed eyes, the more tired I am, the more crossed. When it comes to question and answer, it can get very confusing for the audience because they might not know who I'm pointing to, you know, ask a question. So I always try to get somebody like the MC or a friend or somebody in the audience to pick people to answer the questions. And that has a bunch of advantages that works for poor vision or good vision, but for poor vision especially. where then you're not going to miss somebody. Somebody in the back could be raising their hand for a half an hour and you might not even see them, or some people raise their hand by going, and you never see that, So if somebody else is doing it, you're not going to miss people. Plus, you can concentrate on whatever the latest question is, and you don't have to worry about also looking at the whole audience. So there are a bunch of advantages to poor vision in the situation of public speaking.
Very true, right. And next question. With the COVID-19 pandemic still being a worry in many places, how have you been getting the word out about your book?
Well, I started telling people about the book a little bit before it was done. And I'm not saying there's anything good about the pandemic, but the pandemic was actually a great time to write a book because you were inside, you couldn't socialize, you weren't interrupted by as many things as you would normally like to be interrupted by. And also for similar reasons, it was a good time to narrate. So an audiobook is coming out and the narration is mostly done, but there's still a little bit more. And then afterwards, in terms of publicizing, I would love to be able to travel around and give book talks and do stuff, but I'm holding off on that because I've only had one of the two shots I want to have, and I want to wait till a lot more of the world has been vaccinated before I start doing it. So the use of the internet in terms of like interviews like this are fabulous. I'm hoping 1 million people are watching. Social media, I have a website, kenbrandt.com, KenBrandt.com, and it's got links to all my social media. If anybody wants to contact me or ask any questions after this, great. And I post about different things that are occurring in book reviews I get and stuff like that. And it seems to be slow but steady working.
Definitely. And by talking to you so far, I got another things came in my mind directly. I want my friends to know that I think there is difference between seeing and vision. Like there is a difference between truth and reality. So if person cannot see, it doesn't mean they cannot see. There is a lot in that. Ken, do you agree or not?
I think I agree, but you're getting very philosophical here. I think it sort of relates to the dual meanings of see and the dual meanings of vision, all of which have positive connotations, which is great.
Yeah, right. So let's don't get deep into philosophy and just move to another question. The question for you is, how did you approach writing Positive Vision? And if you write another book, what do you do differently?
This is the only book I've written, so I don't have like a before and after picture. I basically spent 2 years on it, and I would furiously write for several days or a week or 2 weeks, and then I would just not write at all for like a week or 2 weeks or a couple of days, and then I would just repeat that cycle. And the off times were very beneficial for me because I would have it in the back of my mind. I'd think of better ways to say something. I'd think of additional anecdotes or adventures to add that I'd forgotten about. I'd think of all that kind of stuff. And then when I jump back in, all of that would pour out of me. So for me, that worked pretty well. I wouldn't work with a lot of people because of their schedule, but I'm retired now, so it was perfect. That worked. And then towards the end, working with my editor, it was a little bit like that too, because I would be working on, I'd give it to her, she would have a bunch of suggestions, I'd work on them, then I'd give it to her and I'd have a break and she would get back to me, and then so it was an off and on process throughout, and I really enjoyed it actually. I thought it worked out well.
And also I read on your website that you are thinking to write a book about different tastes of pizzas, if I'm not wrong.
Well, maybe. I have a couple ideas for future books. One is people have started telling me different stories they have about their vision, adventures and jokes, and quotes and anecdotes and stuff. And so I'm thinking that might be fun to combine all of those and have another book. And then second, the pizza thing, one of my friends and I, love pizza. And so he was thinking it might be good to travel all over, Australia or maybe the whole world, going to different pizza places, eating the pizza, taking photos of the pizza and the place and the chef and us, and writing about pizza, the history of pizza and what it's like in that place and everything. So it would be actually a pretty fun adventure and something to do. So we haven't decided whether we're doing that or not, but we talk about it over pizza.
Yeah, why not? You can just open an Instagram account and become an influencer about the different types of pizzas. People love that, really. All right.
I don't know. I think I would feel bad if I went to a place and I didn't like the pizza. I don't know if I'd want to write about it.
I know. All right. Let's see. Another question is, your book is a memoir, but unlike most memoirs, it is not a chronological order. Why is it that?
Yeah, you're right. Most autobiographies, memoirs, or biographies are all in chronological. Actually, most books are in chronological order, but not this one. It's more like a magazine. I organized it by topic. So, like, there's one chapter about all the reasons why, if you have poor vision, you might live longer. There's another chapter about how paying attention to your non-visual senses, to hearing, touch, smell, taste, different stories related to that and how they can work to your advantage and how they can be fun. That's one chapter. There's other chapters that are combinations of just different adventures and stories, mayhem, photography, catching a thief. That's one chapter. So it's organized that way. So it doesn't, in some ways, it's much more like a magazine than a book. And it doesn't really matter what order you read it in. I suggest going from front to back, but you could read it in any order.
Yeah. And how did you find and select your editor, book designer, and the person who wrote your foreword?
Well, the editor, with all three, I was very, very lucky. And a longtime friend of mine who I worked with in cybersecurity, information security, he and I worked together. He's a great guy. I've known him for years and years, decades. And I met his name is Russ Fines, and he's married to Elsie Cole. So I got to know Elsie. My wife, Judy Brandt, got to know Elsie, and the four of us have been friends for decades now. It's great. They're wonderful people. So that was how it was. And then I got to the point where, wait, I need an editor. And Elsie is an editor. She's been an editor for years and years, in addition to being a jazz columnist for Hot House Jazz in New York City. She knows everything about jazz. Wow. And she's been an editor for all kinds of different corporate stuff and everything, like every magazine you ever heard of, like Oprah, Popular Mechanics, Glamour, Vogue, like all kinds of completely different magazines. She's been the editor, editing articles for, as well as all kinds of other types of freelance editing. So I asked her if she wanted to edit my book, and she read the first drafts and some stuff about it, and she said yes. And she's been tremendous. We'd never worked together. We'd known each other for a long time, and she's tremendous to work for. It was just a pleasure. She had all kinds of great ideas, and both in terms of add this, take this away, rearrange this, as well as pure copy editing. So all of that was really great. So I highly recommend her to anybody who needs a book editor. And then the book designer, I was even luckier. I know somebody who has decades and decades of art direction, graphic design experience, designing logos, designing ad campaigns, creating video images for artworks and photography and abstract photography, and all logos and all kinds of different stuff for everything you can imagine for still and moving art. And it turns out I'm married to her. She's my wife. So it was perfect. So
I was waiting for that.
Yeah. So I was like, okay. And so she was very happy to, design the book cover, from everything from the book cover, the back cover, and then there's a whole process of designing the layout of the book. How do the pages fall? And it's one way for the hardcover and the paperback, and it's another way for the ebook, which has to be done differently. So she did all of that, which is fabulous, and gotten all kinds of positive feedback on that too, which is great. And then for the forward, 3 mornings a week, I meet with a group of neighbors and friends in a nearby park, and we early morning we exercise together in the park. So push-ups, pull-ups, parallel bar dips, planks, all kinds of different stuff. Everybody's doing things in a different order, and we're not competing with each other, but it's fun, early in the morning, especially in the winter when it's cold, to be exercising with other people as opposed to on your own. One of those guys is a forester, and he's also a writer. He's a forester in that he literally travels around the world helping places that have industrial waste sites and old mines and stuff, convert them back into meadows and forests and stuff. How do you regrow everything? So he very nicely wrote the foreword. He also got an award. He got an Order of Australia award, which is one of the highest medal, maybe it's the highest medal Australia gives for his forestry work in Australia and around the world, recovering old, horrible sites into beautiful sites. So he wrote the foreword, and what an honor to have him write that foreword.
Right. And Ken, just tell us a little bit about yourself. Where did you grow up? Where have you lived, and all of that?
I was born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, in the USA. And when I was an infant, my family and I moved to Chicago, Illinois. And then we moved also when I was an infant to outside Philadelphia, to Westchester, Pennsylvania. And I lived there. And I don't remember at all Pittsburgh or Chicago as I lived there, but I've been back to both as an adult and really had a great time. So I highly recommend them as places to visit. Philadelphia, I lived there through second grade. So I remember that as a little kid would remember it. I thought it was great. I thought I was having a great time, all of that. Again, I went back as an adult many times and recommend that as a fun place to visit. Then my family moved to Connecticut, outside New York City, and that was a great place to live. And I ended up going to university in Washington, D.C., moved to New York City, lived there most of my life, aside from a four-year stint in Baltimore, which was actually great also. And that was my big out-of-town experience until moving to Melbourne, Australia, where my wife and I have been living for several years. And we love Melbourne. We're now American citizens. We've always been American citizens. Now we're also Australian citizens, and we just think both places are great. We would normally travel back to New York regularly, but due to coronavirus, we haven't been for a while.
Yeah. So, what is your vision, and how has it varied over the course of your life?
My vision now, which is pretty much the peak, I've never been better than this, is 2080 in my good eye, which is equal to 624 in metric. And my other eye, it's twice as bad. It's 2160 and 648. I've had much worse vision. I was legally blind for parts of my life. I've had 6 eye operations, including a detached retina in each eye and a cataract operation in each eye. So depending on the operation, depending on what was going on, my vision would go like way down, and then the operation would would bring it up, or it was going down and, it saved it. So I'm very, very grateful for, medical science and doctors and nurses and everything, all the advances, and very, very happy with the vision I have now. That if it wasn't for a lot of science advancements, I wouldn't be able to see it all.
And how have ophthalmologists and optometrists helped or inspired you in the journey?
Oh, well, first, as I just mentioned, if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be able to see anything. So, that's just gigantically helpful. And I encourage everybody to thank their eye doctors for that every once in a while, because most people don't do that. Second, I want to, as mentioned a little bit earlier, I've gotten great book reviews, and many eye professionals have recommended the book. So that's been really, really good as well. One of my eye doctors said to me one time, he goes, Ken, you see worse than most of my patients, yet you have a better attitude than all of them, and I love that,
Yeah, amazing. And Ken, I love the adventures, humor, and joy of your book, Positive Vision, enjoying the adventures and advantages of poor vision. So let me ask you specific questions about the book. Starting with some adventures. Many of these seem adventurous for anyone, let alone someone with low vision. Tell us about parachuting, which you mentioned in the book.
Yeah. So this was a while ago. I was in college. I went to American University in Washington, D.C., and Washington, D.C. is next to the state of Maryland. And two of my friends and I decided, well, let's go learn how to parachute one weekend. So we go to Downsville, Maryland. Downsville, that was the real name of the town, is the real name of the town. And they had a parachute training place there. I was thinking parachuting would be really good because with poor vision, you can't, I like going fast, I like running, I like bicycling, but I can run, fast, and pretty good at seeing what's in front of me. But bicycling, I can easily go way faster than I can see some dips in the road and bumps and stuff. So I have to be pretty careful. And it's really, really very good for society that I cannot get a driver's license. That would just not be safe. So I like going fast, but you don't have as many opportunities. So I thought parachuting, you could go really fast. You see in TV and movies, you see guys flying out of planes, and they're really moving. So I thought, this could be really good. So what I didn't think about, which I should have thought about before I went, is, am I going to be able to see the place where I'm supposed to land? I definitely should have thought about that more beforehand, but I didn't think of that. So go to this training place, and the training was actually really interesting and fun, and you learned a couple of worthwhile skills. You practice jumping off a box, starting low and then working your way up to pretty high. So the box is maybe 6 feet or 2 meters high, and you jump up in the air off the box with your eyes closed, and they yell at you which way to land. So you front left, back right, whatever direction, and you land without knowing where the ground is, and you have to roll. And you learn how to do that, and it's actually a useful skill, which I've never actually had to use aside from parachuting. But if you have to ever jump out of a building because of fire or something, you're going to be better off the better you can land on things. So that was good. You learn other sort of useful things, which I never have had to use, which I'm glad I never did. Like if you're parachuting and you're about to land in a forest and there's a bunch of trees, cross your legs. Do not have your legs in a normal position. So there's that kind of stuff, as well as all the basic stuff about when to use your backup parachute, how to steer your parachute, all of those things. So then you get in this little plane, and it's a little tiny plane. It can only fit 3 or 4 of you, or no, 2 or 3 parachuters, the instructor, and the pilot. And it's tiny, and where the door is, or was, there's just an opening. So there's nothing to open and close. There's just this opening. So you get in, and I'm sitting right next to the door. I'm inches away from this opening, right? So, I've never been in a plane before where you take off and you're inches away from nothing. And so that was a little scary just by itself. And so we're going higher and higher and higher, and we're going. And then it's my turn. And so you have to, it's not like every parachuting thing I've seen on TV and the movies where you're in the plane and then you jump out. In this situation, you had to crawl out underneath the wing and above the wheel. You're holding on to these metal things, metal struts, until you get your feet out above the wheel on one metal strut, and your hands are out above you holding on to another strut. So you're hanging on for dear life. The wind, the plane is flying. You're out there on the wing, below the wing as the plane is flying. The engine is roaring. The wind is coming at you, and it's unbelievably loud, and you're holding on. And then the instructor goes, yeah, of course you can't hear him, but he's saying jump. What else would he be saying? So after holding on to save your life, you just let go. And then you're in the air, and the plane is going far, 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 far away. And you're waiting for your parachute to open, and you're wondering if you're waiting too long, and you're thinking about the backup parachute. And even though the first 3 jumps, you're connected by a cord, so your parachute automatically opens, which is probably really good, because I was pretty close to thinking I needed my backup parachute. So anyway, the parachute opens, and it's a glorious, glorious, glorious feeling. You really, really are happy when your parachute opens and you're not.
And this is too much adrenaline for me. I don't think so. I would try that.
So then I realized, oh, wait a minute, where am I supposed to steer the parachute? I don't know. I don't see any spot I'm supposed to be aiming for, right? So I'm supposed to be looking for this little tiny target that's the size of a Frisbee, which in competitive parachuting, that's what you're supposed to aim for. And that's impossible. It's just like that. So there were all these big fields and a highway, and one field was not crops. It was just dirt. And I said, all right, that's probably it. So I steer for that. I get closer and closer. And then I see a circle of people, and I go, all right, okay. That'll be the people standing around the target. So I go, all right, that's good. So I still can't, I could just see the circle, and I couldn't see the target. Then I got way closer, and then I could see the target. So the object was to get as close to the target as you could. And I got pretty close. I didn't hit it, but I got very close. And so then the next thing was, okay, do you want to do you want to jump again? And most people didn't want to jump again. The vast majority of people, one was enough. And I said, no, this is great. I want to do this again. So then you have the option of packing your own parachute or giving it to somebody who knows what they're doing to pack. And I said, well, I'm taking my life in my hands here anyway. I might as well learn how to do everything if I want to keep doing this. So I followed the directions. So I go into a field and you spread your parachute out. But it was very windy that day. So you have to take rocks and put them on top of your parachute to hold it down. So I'm putting all these rocks on the parachute. And then as I fold it up, I throw the rocks out and fold it the way it's supposed to. And I get back in the plane, and all the same things happen, except this time, when my parachute opens, bam, 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 bam. I had missed a billion rocks. They're falling. Luckily, you wear a motorcycle helmet when you parachute. And so all these rocks are falling all over me. And it didn't hurt, but it was a little embarrassing, even though I was the only person there in the air. But then I looked down, and luckily, as far as I could tell, nobody was underneath me. And I never heard anything later about anybody getting bombed by rocks. So I did a much, much better job after that of getting the rocks out of there, because I thought I had done a good job, but I definitely had not. So anyway, I then later found out that my eye doctor correctly advised me, goes, if you have had a detached retina, which I had had in both eyes, said, a big bang to the head, you could redetach it, meaning your vision could go way down or you could go blind in that eye. So I very reluctantly gave up parachuting and gave up my captaincy of my university parachuting team. I stayed in touch with a lot of people who were doing it, and that was fun while I was in university, but I had to give it up. So that's an example of something where I think you could live longer with poor vision, because if I had not had to give it up, I definitely would have kept going for, like, who knows, forever, you know?
I know it's very risky. I'm living in a town which is famous for parachuting. It's in Fethiye, and it's very risky sport, I must tell you.
I recommend it to everybody who hasn't had it detached.
Okay. It's, you know, the station is not even I would say 1 mile away from me. I never tried it yet. So it's risky, guys. Don't listen to Ken. It's very risky. Okay. And tell us about your New York arson fire escape.
Okay, this is a story where I should have been paying attention to my other senses, my non-visual senses, smell in particular. So for a long time, I lived in a studio apartment on the fifth floor studio apartment in New York City. And a studio apartment is an apartment with, you know, it's no separate bedroom. So you just walk in the door and there's one room, and it's a little room. Off that is a little bathroom, but it's one room where you're sleeping, and there's a little table if you have a table to eat at and stuff, and that's it. So it's small. So one morning I wake up and I look across to the wall, which is very close, and I can't see the wall because there's so much, I think, fog. I'm thinking fog. There's so much fog in my apartment, I can't see the wall. I go, well, that's funny. And I roll back over and go to sleep. The next thing I know, and I clearly was not paying attention to my nose to smell, right? So the next thing I know, my next door neighbor is banging on everybody's wall going, fire, 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 waking everybody up, doing a good deed that I should have been doing if I had been paying attention. But no, I thought it was fog. So I get up and get dressed faster than I've ever gotten up and gotten dressed ever in my life. Get out, you know, it's unbelievable. There's smoke all over the place, and go outside. So I'm talking to my neighbor briefly, and then up the stairs. So you have to come up 4 flights of stairs to get to the 5th floor in America, different than Australia. And this firefighter is running up the stairs. Now, so he's got all the firefighter stuff on, right? So he's sprinting up the stairs. Now, my neighbor and I had lived on the 5th floor for a long time. We'd seen what kind of shape people are in by them coming up the stairs. Some people, you know, they view it as a little bit of a challenge. All right, here we go. I made it. All right, that's good. And other people, you could go to the movies between the time you let them in, buzz them in, and the time they get there. You know, they're just exhausted. This guy, heavy boots, heavy clothes, fire helmet, axe, oxygen tent. He's sprinting up the stairs, and he says, just like this, not out of breath, just like this, could you two guys give me a boost over the wall to the other building? He says it just like that. We've never seen anything like that before. So I go, yeah, sure. So we go up the 1 flight to the roof, and we give him a boost over to the other building. So, and he was pretty heavy, you know, it was glad there were 2 of us, not just me, you know, so we give him a boost, and his job was to take his axe and smash a hole in the roof of the other building so that the heat could escape, and all the other firefighters who were fighting it from the side and the bottom, it would be easier. So we do that, and we think, oh, well, that was a really good deed we did, right? So then we go back, and when we stay on the roof, we look out the back, and we see what's going on. There's a sort of an alleyway kind of place where the back of a lot of buildings met, and the building on fire, the one right next door to us, the smoke is just pouring out, massive amounts of smoke, and doing a U-turn and coming through our building. Now, like, you know, why did it pick our building? I don't know, but it was. And we say, all right, okay, we see what's going on. I think we're in pretty good shape. The fire's not in our building, it's just in that building. It was set on fire, it was arson. So then we say, well, let's look at it at the front. So we go to the front, which is the street side, and there's all these fire trucks, water trucks, ladder trucks, all these people, firefighters furiously working, the street blocked off. So we're checking out the scene. And then there's one guy who's the chief. He's wearing a slightly different uniform, and he has a bullhorn. You know, he yells up at us, you know, you idiots, get off the roof and out of the building. Well, you know, he had a good point there. You know, we really shouldn't have been loitering around. So So we go back down. My neighbor leaves right away. I figured, well, the building's in pretty good shape. So I very quickly went back to my apartment, took a shower, and changed, and then went to work. But it's just an example of, it's really good to pay attention to your sense of smell and other senses. It can actually save your life and the life of other people.
Right. Good memories, very strange. And one optometry related question, that do you believe poor eyesight is better than good eyesight?
Oh, not at all. Not at all. I've had, as I mentioned, sort of a roller coaster of vision going up and down, and it's always better to have better vision. I haven't had, good vision as most people have, but I'm sure it's better than my vision. So good is always better. And I encourage everybody to follow the directions of their eye doctors or whatever. Do whatever you can to protect your eyes and get better vision. But having said that, there are some advantages to poor vision. And if you have poor vision, you should enjoy and laugh and just have a good time with those advantages, because there are a few advantages and you might as well be aware of them and be happy.
Can you just share some of your advantage of poor eyesight with us? Perhaps start with why you think the world can be a more beautiful place for people with low vision.
Well, it is. Think of 3 examples. Okay. Think of man-made things, beautiful statues, beautiful buildings, beautiful architecture, beautiful city scenes, beautiful old town, little town scenes, beautiful bridges, all of that stuff. It can be really, some is not so beautiful, but a lot is really beautiful. If you have poor vision, you're looking at that, you're enjoying it. If you have really good vision, you might be able to see a little rust, a little chipped paint, a little graffiti, a little broken stone somewhere. Well, if you have poor vision, you're not going to notice any of that stuff. It's just more beautiful. And then the same thing with natural things. You look at beautiful beachfront or desert or mountains or meadows, and you're looking at those and you're going, wow, this is really cool being in this forest or whatever. And somebody with good vision right beside you might think, well, it's generally okay, but there's a little litter over there, or there's this over there, and I don't see it. And other people with poor vision, they might miss that too. And you go, hey, the world's more beautiful. And then the same thing with people. Some people have little wrinkles or scars or something, and I can't see them. But if you have good vision, you see them. That, for me, everybody's like more handsome and more beautiful than they probably are.
Yeah. Basically, we say you see by your heart, which is very nice. Yeah.
Exactly.
No philosophy today. I don't want to go deep in that. But anyways, you have an inspiring or humorous quotes at the start of each chapter and a joke or two at the end of each chapter. What are some of your favorites?
Well, first I should mention that 99% of the book is the chapters themselves. It's like less than 1% is a little tiny inspiring or humorous quote at the beginning of each chapter, and a joke or two at the end of each chapter. And they're usually very, very corny jokes. But some examples, there's a quote in front of one chapter by Gerald Way, and he said, "One day, your life is going to flash before your eyes. Make sure it's worth watching."
Beautiful.
And then jokes, I'll give you an example of a short joke and an example of a long joke. So most of the jokes are pretty short. So an optician, an ophthalmologist, and an optometrist walk into a bar. Nobody could see the difference. And the long joke, a guy walks into a restaurant, he's going to have dinner by himself, and he's going over towards a table, and he sees a woman sitting at a table, and she sneezes, a really big sneeze. And it's such a big sneeze that it turns out she has a glass eye, and her glass eye pops out of her head and goes flying across the room. He gallantly sprints and catches the glass eye before it hits the ground or anybody. And then he goes over and gives it to her. And she's very grateful. And she said, "Oh, I'm so embarrassed and so thankful. How can I make it up to you?" And she puts her eye in and she goes, "How about if I join you for dinner and I'll happily buy you dinner?" And he goes, "Sure, that'd be great." So they sit down and they talk, and he has a tremendous time. He thinks she's really fun to talk to. They have common interests. He likes her sense of humor. It's just a very enjoyable conversation. He finds out about her, she finds out about him. So he asks her towards the end of dinner, "Well, could I ask you out, and you want to give me your phone number?" And so she does. She gives him her phone number. And then he says, "Well, we just met. Do you give your phone number out to people like, all the time like this?" And she goes, No. You just happened to catch my eye."
Ah, yeah. All right. And Ken, you are generously donating 10% of your other royalties to two good eyesight causes. And I want to know, why are you doing that? And how did you select them?
Well, I just thought it would be a nice thing to do. So the two causes, so 10% of the royalties from the book go to two eye-related causes. So anybody who buys the book, you're actually doing a good deed in that sense, because you're contributing to these two causes. So 5% each to two places. One is Massachusetts Eye and Ear, which is a big hospital in the Boston area. They do tons of research into all kinds of eye stuff. And when I was a little kid, I had both of my detached retina operations were done by Mass Eye and Ear. So if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be able to see anything. So 5% of my other royalties to them. The other 5% goes to Fred Hollows Foundation, which is an Australian company that runs around the world. They're in 26 different countries, helping people with stuff that would, if they lived in developed countries, would be preventable. So like cataract operations or different kinds of medicine, where just because they're living in a poor, medically serviced place, they can't get the doctors and nurses and the medication. So Fred Hollows Foundation runs around helping in all of these kind of places. And there are literally thousands and thousands and thousands of people who would be blind, but thanks to Fred Hollows, I can see. It's great. So, that's a non-greedy reason for me to say buy the book.
Definitely. And where can we buy the book and read your book reviews?
You can buy the book at literally every major online bookstore around the world, which is fabulous. If you want a list of them, you can look on my website, which is kenbrandt.com, KenBrandt.com. And there's one page that has a list of all the places selling the book and links to it. And then for book reviews and articles and interview links, there are pages for those as well. So there's lots of positive articles and reviews and book reviews. So plenty to read.
Yeah.
Or view, and podcasts or listen to,
Yeah. All right. And Ken, before finishing the first session, I want to request you to just give a piece of advice to our audience.
Well, I'll narrow it down to people, not the full audience, but people with poor vision. But it generally applies to, I guess it applies to anybody. Do whatever you need to do to protect your eyes. Follow your eye doctor's advice. Wear safety glasses. Get glasses or contact lenses if you need to. Do whatever they suggest. You're going to get to whatever point it is where you can see as well as you can see. And just be very grateful for that level of eyesight capability. Now, whatever it is, no matter how good or bad, it's better to have some and just be grateful for it. And then don't let that stop you from anything. Whatever you decide you want to do, just give it a red hot go for it, and laugh at yourself along the way and have a good time.
Great, thank you. And now I would like to bring your very creative art director, graphic design. But apart from all of this, I want to bring Ken's love partner, his wife, Judy. Can we have her here now?
Yes, just a sec. Let me get her. Hey, Judy.
Hey.
There she is.
Interview her a little bit. Hello, Judy.
We're half blocked off, but that's okay.
Oh, you can see both of us?
Yeah, thanks for joining us here today. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you here. Yesterday we were talking to Ken and I said, it would be very nice if you come as a surprise and our audience would be so happy to see you.
Well, thanks for having me. I think, I've been supporting Ken with his book all along, so it's nice to be here as well.
And Judy, you and Ken have been married for over 20 years now. So what is like being married to an author?
An author? Well, and I was married to an IT consultant, information security expert for many more years until Ken became an author. So it's a fairly new situation, for us. Mm-hmm. But I think, Ken really hasn't changed that much because, he had dedicated himself, totally to his work previously. And he applied the same focus and dedication to his writing. So it's not really, that different. For me, anyway.
Yeah. And you have years of experience creating advertisement, printed materials, web designs, and logos for many small and large firms in New York and Melbourne as well. You also have a wonderful portfolio of paintings, photographs, projection videos, and abstract photographs. Somehow, in the middle of all this, you also managed to design the book cover and the inside book layout of Positive Vision. So how similar or different was doing the book cover and book layout design?
Well, I guess I pretty much regarded it like an assignment that I would have done professionally. And my background is in marketing and advertising. And so I treated it like a project that, where I would have to really, focus in on what we're doing, who we're trying to reach, why we're doing it. And then, through collaborating and interpreting Ken's ideas into something that's actually visual, like the cover, and how to sort of attract the people that would actually, be interested in what Ken has to say. And so that's, pretty much it was like a work relationship at that time.
Definitely. So what was it's like for the two of you to work together on the book professionally? Even like the argument, fight, or something?
Well, I guess I sort of would treat it like I would treat a client, where you have to really respect where they're coming from, but yet use your own expertise to sort of put it in the right direction. And because of that, we were able to collaborate on things like the title of the book, what the structure of the pages would look like, how to organize that kind of a thing. And it's actually very rewarding for me because that's the kind of work that I like to do. So it was a very good project.
Yeah, I just see this book as a documentary. It's everything just from the real world, the real life. That's really worth buying and reading it. Definitely. And Ken, there is a question for you from our audience. That what are the software or technologies used for writing this book, and what low vision aids using for daily activities? Like any specific mobile software did you use for reading the text or not?
For writing the book, I just used standard, Microsoft Word, and that worked well. Judy used special software for actually doing the design. What did you use?
Well, I work on a Mac, and I work in InDesign. So what I do is I take Ken's files from Microsoft Word and I put them into my programs, and that way I can insert all of the art into it and rearrange it all so it looks beautiful. And it's actually, the writing part is not technically, that unusual, because it's like almost everybody uses Microsoft Word these days.
Yeah, right.
And then I'm lucky enough, so I after having a cataract operation in each eye, you have an embedded contact lens. It's like permanently inside your eye.
Yes.
That adjusts your vision. So that's what I use. I don't need anything else for walking around and running and working out and doing stuff. I do use reading glasses some of the time.
Perfect. And here, here are the poll answer, just answered by the audience, and I'm going to read it loud. And I would like to know, how do you think? The first question was, which is your favorite type of book? The majority said biography, autobiography, memoir, and history. Question number 2, which...
Good for them, good pick.
Good, okay. Another one, which would be the most interesting? They said the adventures of poor eyesight. Perfect. And another one, which do you think would be your favorite of Ken's adventures? Most of the people said parachuting. No, that was dangerous, people. Okay, and the last one, which do you think would be your favorite advantage of poor eyesight? The majority of them said enhanced use of the other senses, which is very true. Yeah, very nice. So
I don't think there's really any right or wrong answer to any of those questions. So.
Yeah, that's true. So Judy and Ken, if you want to add anything before we just wrap up today's meeting.
Now we're all set. Just thanks very much to you, Beta, and thanks very much to everybody who listened. And I'd love it if you consider buying the book, and I'd love to get your feedback.
Yeah, and if anybody of our audience have any question, please write it down in the chat box. Just give a few seconds if you have any question. I think I've covered all the thing about the book. So Ken, thank you so much, and Judy, for joining us today. I look forward to have you again, and we will definitely read your book and we'll write the review.
Thanks very much.
Have a nice evening. Thank you, everyone, our audience, to just give time to us, and let me just accompany me to host this beautiful couple. Thank you so much.